What is up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's Matt, and you can tell I'm not in any theme park today. I'm actually in my homestead. I had plans to go out to Magic Kingdom today, do a little ride on Tron, and walk around the theme park, see how busy everything is, and then basically talk about what a garbage service Genie Plus is. And I actually have some actual evidence to show you what a crap service it is, because a lot of people that are first timers keep defending it, and I keep saying no. FastPass Plus was much better, and it was free, and it just seems to have made the parks more crowded and just everything. So obviously that didn't happen today. The reason why was I woke up early this morning, like usual, to get my workout in. And then, like I said, I'm gonna wake up, get workout in about 5:30, wrap it up about 6:45, get a lightning lane, or not a lightning lane, virtual queue for Tron, and then head on over. But in my news feed early this morning was, I'm sure as everybody knows now, the Baltimore bridge collapse. And obviously, having been in the fire service for almost 20 years, and still practicing in some areas, including as a paramedic and other things, obviously this kind of stuff really grabs my attention, and it seems to have grabbed the world's attention. I mean, it's been on pretty much all day. So I've been following it, and I also had to wrap up I have one more class to do for my paramedic recert for my license, like what you saw in the other vlog I just uploaded where I was at Epcot last night. I was going to kind of do that as well from Magic Kingdom, just kind of go sit in the hub grass and do my class. But I've been following this today, and first thing I want to say is, and I think this is unanimous, but one, there needs to be a lot of prayers for not only the first responders and everybody that's responded to this tragedy, but also the people that were involved, and apparently there's at least 6 that they know of that are still missing. They think that they're the construction workers that were working on the bridge. There's a lot of details that still have not been released yet, but again, having been in the fire service, I cannot imagine, okay? And this basically, just before I get started, this is kind of just a home vlog. Just gonna talk with the camera, little to if no editing at all. I'm just gonna hear me as I talk, basically. Because I've got a lot of thoughts and a lot of things to say on this matter. As I followed the news kind of throughout the day, and it's just when you see things like this, anybody that watches this vlog that's been in or is currently still part of the emergency services, the military, even hospital staff, EMS, anybody that provides a service to the public can probably try to understand something of this magnitude. But what I will say is, I could not imagine being on duty with the Baltimore City Fire Department last night, or I should say early this morning, and those men and women that were working. Can you only imagine being sound asleep at about 1:30 a.m. this morning, and your station tones drop for a call, and then as the dispatch comes through, you find out you're responding to a major bridge collapse? I mean, it's hard to even wrap your mind around that. I mean, I've been called out to several house fires early in the morning. I've been called out to several really bad accidents, car accidents. I've been called out to medical calls, even water rescues early in the morning. Nothing at this magnitude, though. I mean, I've had some pretty big fires, that we were there multiple days. And I've had a few other things, when I was in South Carolina, Charleston, I was part of a few ocean rescues. But nothing on this level. I mean, I can't imagine, as you're being woken up out of a deep sleep, and then you're trying to figure out what in the world this is you're going through, and that you maybe hope that this is an overreaction by somebody, because that does happen too. But I know for me, that was one of the hardest parts of being on duty, is that being woken up in the middle of the night when you're in that REM sleep because you busted your ass all day on shift, and you're just, you've just settled in and you're sound asleep, and those tones drop, and now you got to try to wake up in an instant and figure out, okay, what are we going to do and how are we going to solve this problem? So I can only imagine whatever stations are in that coverage area, to have to respond out there. And then as you're going along, more and more reports are coming in that you find out the entire bridge is in the water. I think this thing spans like a mile and a half. It's the pictures on the news and the video of the actual tanker vessel, or the cargo vessel that collided with that bridge. I mean, it's unbelievable. And as I watched, through this thing today, people were talking about, oh, our bridges are unsafe. And people are trying to say, listen, this is a whole different incident in regards to bridges being safe or unsafe. This thing was a monstrosity. These tanker cargo carriers. I used to see them go in and out of Charleston all the time, underneath the big Ravenel Bridge there. Anybody that's in Charleston knows the Ravenel, and then there's one other bridge that's on the outside, right? Is on the outside of the harbor. I think it begins with an H. But I used to stand on top of that Ravenel sometimes and watch those cargo ships come and go. Those things are absolutely monstrous, and the weight that's behind those, I can't even imagine what the overall tonnage on something like that would be. But they were saying that this thing was at around 8 knots, so that's 8 miles an hour. You got something that big going at that speed, and especially if it's out of control. One, even if you do get under power, you're not going to be able to turn it or even slow it down. I mean, because if you look at the video, you see a lot of smoke, black smoke, come out of I'm guessing the smokestack on the top of probably the engine house, right before it hit the bridge. So maybe they had lost power and were trying to fire it up and back it up or whatever they were doing. But you can see right where it hits the bridge. And the way bridges are designed, I learned this from that was one thing Purdue was known for very well, is really good civil engineers. And the thing with bridges is basically those old steel arch bridges. This one was built in '77, so they're like this, and everything is tied into each other. So basically that bridge, all the weight across all the steel girders are all attached, and everything's load bearing on that thing and supportive. And you hit that main support on the main part of the bridge, which then caused it to collapse, which that part, if you watch the video, that part of the bridge drops down. But once that happens and it breaks loose from the other half, there's nothing else holding the other half in, which is why the second half basically flipped up in the air, and then it came down as well. If you see the video, it's pretty horrific to watch, actually. But that first part drops down where it gets hit, and then there's nothing holding this anymore, so the weight just carries it up in the air, and then it basically collapsed on itself into the water. I wonder that had that ship hit the bridge somewhere else away from the main structure, I bet it would have just probably dropped down one of those road slabs, because those bridges are nothing but basically individual slabs of road, and they're connected, like by grates, or teeth, and the bridges are meant to expand and contract in the weather and with the wind and everything. And so it's all a unique series of pieces, so that the whole thing expands and contracts and moves. But when you have this happen, they hit it in absolutely the worst part imaginable, where it brought down the main structure, which collapsed the whole thing. Because if you look, both ends on either side, the ramps, they're still intact. So that they hit it in the absolute worst part imaginable. One other thing is, and by the way, there's nothing that I know of that's going to withstand a hit like that. That's going to bring even the most modern of structures down, unless maybe it was built more recently and it's built to withstand an enormous impact like that. But that whole bridge, just once it lost its load bearing strength, that support's gone, it just came down, and then, like I said, the rest of it just flipped up in the air. So yeah, I can't imagine responding to something like that. And definitely need to have a lot of prayers for not only the victims, but also the people responding to this, the men and women responding to this. I've been watching, and there's some reports that some of the Navy divers, Navy SEAL divers are there, along with Baltimore Fire and Rescue. They have specialized divers for this. I'm sure, you know, the Coast Guard is also on scene with some divers. This is a unique situation because not only are you diving in an extremely dangerous environment, but you're diving in what they call almost black water, which that's like what you'd call brackish water, where it's the area where the salt water of the ocean mixes with like river water. And it's very turbulent through there because of the tides. They raise and lower throughout the days. And also with the incoming and outgoing tides, you have increased water flow and increased currents. So not only are these divers facing very, very limited visibility, but you're also dealing with underwater currents in a collapse zone with a bridge that probably has, you know, is probably relatively still unstable, the way that's moving like that. And so, one, you have to be careful not to get hung up on anything. I mean, one of the SEAL divers they were talking to earlier said that, you know, this isn't a cable suspension bridge, so you don't have to worry as much about loose cables all over the place. But he said still that with the twisted steel and all that, you know, it presents cut hazards and still entanglement hazards. Plus, things could shift at a moment's notice, causing a further collapse. If you look at right now these photos, that roadway part of the bridge is resting over that cargo tanker. You know, it's on the front of it, and it's interesting too because it's cut deep into the ship. So obviously it's going to be a long time before they even can move that ship, because they're basically going to have to remove the bridge from around the ship before they can even do anything. So my guess is that ship is probably being anchored in place. You know, and I can't even imagine to where they would start with the investigation on something like this. I mean, obviously, you know, the manifestation of the ship, the safety logs, all that other stuff. It's going to be an unbelievable process. But what's interesting is they referred to as, you know, going to the command post, getting all their information from the command post. For those that are in fire rescue and all the other emergency services and even the military, and those that aren't, there's a system called NIMS, National Incident Management System, which was created after the 9/11 tragedies. Because before that, on any major incident, there really wasn't any uniform way of setting up a command system. Everything was done by their own, everybody's personal jurisdictions. So they created this NIM system, this unified nationwide command system, which everybody runs it the same way. There's no individualities in this, and we spent time training on it because you had all these classes of IS 100, IS 200, all the way up to I think it's 11 or 1200. And it's pretty intense stuff. I remember after it was formed, we would even practice it on minor incidents with our fire department. You know, the chief would arrive and he would establish command. You know, he'd say stuff like, you know, I'm arriving at, you know, a fire alarm at such and such address, you know, engine 601, 602 is arriving, nothing's showing from four sides, I'm gonna have such and such street command. And then that means that the chief has command there, and then anything that goes through, or any information in and out of that scene, radio communications, everything goes right through the chief who has command. And then if you transfer command, it's done as a face-to-face, and there's no like over the phone, you don't do that anymore. It's face-to-face transferring command, and then the next person assumes command until they relieve that person, and on and on. But from the main incident commander, everything branches out. You know, they have different sectors, different divisions. You know, there's different finance divisions, like with the divers in the water. That's a whole nother division, which has all these different supervisors over the divisions. But it all works its way back to the incident commander. So it's a really, really efficient system. And as I heard them on the news, that's one thing they've been talking about this throughout the day. But again, man, the divers that are in the water, anybody undergoing search and rescue operations, you know, God bless them, and you know, keep them safe so that they may return home safely to their families as well. Because I will tell you, every time something like this happens, and even the minor stuff, time and time and time again, fire, police, EMS, military, anybody that's in public service, even in the hospital systems, we all show the world who we are and what we're capable of. When everybody's going the opposite direction, we're all going towards it, you know. And I can't, as I was saying earlier, I cannot imagine having the station houses that were originally called to that. What in the world would be, you know, would be your thoughts? You know, one would be, maybe this is a gross overreaction by somebody and it's not that big a deal. I mean, I'm sure that is a thought, but then as you get closer and you get more reports, you know, you got 1.5 miles worth of bridge in the water. That's hard to even comprehend, you know. And then you got to think about, well, how many people do we got? Where are they? You know, this is obviously low visibility. And you also got to deal with the temperature. You know, they were saying that water is maybe 40 degrees, if that, because up in Baltimore, it's still winter time. So likely those divers have got probably dry suits on, which, if you're not familiar, dry suits are a rubberized suit that seals around the body, and it doesn't let any water in. But when you're in the water, you actually feel the pressure of it against you. It's and then usually when you dive, you have something called an auga mask, which is a self-encapsulating mask similar to an SCBA that a fireman would wear, and that is a whole nother separate certification to dive with an auga mask. Because I know when we did our ice diving back in Indiana, we used Gumby suits, and then anybody that was an ice diver had to be auga mask certified. You just couldn't put one of those on and dive, because there's certain things you have to know on how to operate that thing. It's very different from a mouthpiece regulator. So all kinds of things to consider. But just the more and more I keep seeing this, I'm just like, man, it's almost like it's hard to even believe. And like you look at the images and you're like, is this even real? Did this even happen? You know, it looks like something you'd see out of a movie. You know, I mean, the way I'm sure by now most people have seen it, but the video of that ship hitting that bridge support right there, and that whole thing just like, it just came down so fast. Try not to go too long-winded with this, but this is just, it's interesting to talk about. Quick story back from my early days in the fire department. You know, when I was talking about earlier of what the men and women responding to this, you know, and all the agencies, like what must you be thinking when you're going to something like this, of like, holy cow, what do we do with this? And when I was a probationary firefighter back in Indiana, they called us probies. Anybody that's a firefighter that's watching this knows what I'm talking about. That's basically your first year when you are under intense watch and scrutiny, and that's kind of your trial year. And if you screw up really bad at any point in time, they can tell you to take a hike and thanks for playing, try again later. So it's a very intense first year. Once you're done with it and you're off probationary status, you know you've kind of made it, you know, and now you're getting closer to being a part of the firehouse crew. And it's interesting because they'll say, you know, the only people that'll tell you when you're a fireman are the firemen in your station house. They'll tell you when. So that whole probie year is really interesting, and sometimes they can extend it if they feel like you have the capabilities but you're still not there yet. They can even extend it. But mine, it lasted a year, and I always said, you know, you took a lot of loving abuse that year. It's where you grow and become one with the fire department and become a big family. But that first year, it was early fall. It was like October, late October, and we got a call to the Norway Dam. So in Indiana, in the town I served, Monticello. Small little area, but during the summers the population exploded because we had an amusement park resort called Indiana Beach, and then we had two lakes, Lake Schaefer and Lake Freeman, and then we had the Tippecanoe River on both sides of those lakes. So basically how it was, the Tippecanoe River came down, there was the Norway Dam, and then, the Tippecanoe River turned into Lake Schaefer. Then there was the Norway Dam, and then at the bottom of the dam was the river again, which then turned into Lake Freeman, which then after Lake Freeman there was another dam called the Oakdale Dam, and then after that the Tippecanoe River kept going. Having two dams in your response district is a big deal, because as we learned that day, there's a lot to think about and what things that can go wrong, especially even after heavy rains. That dam looks like it's going to seriously injure somebody. The way that water just pours out of there, it's almost frightening to look at. But this day, like I said, late October, it was 2000, I think it was, 06, late 06. And we got a call. It was in early afternoon, and it was for a diver potentially stuck in the dam. Now, people immediately be like, how in the hell? What? How? So, there was an electric company that serves northern Indiana called NIPSCO, Northern Indiana Public Service Company. And they had all the electricity they were responsible for. Well, they ran both of those dams. They were hydroelectric dams. And what they wanted, or what they did, was they hired a local guy. Now, this wasn't anybody certified or anything. It was just somebody they kind of paid, they paid him a lot of money, but it was a lot cheaper than paying a commercial set of divers to do the maintenance. So they basically, there was a lot, more than likely things like, not legit things going on with this, but it had been done for years like this. You know, they hired a local guy to go and, you know, do maintenance on the dam year after year. Well, this year, or that year that they did this, they slowed the dam down to basically a very slow speed, but they didn't shut it off entirely, because it was said if you shut it off, then, you know, that's money wasted or money being lost. So the guy was down there with the dam still on, even though flowing slowly, it was still turned on, if you will. Well, the guy goes down there, and all of a sudden he's not coming up like he's supposed to. And so they think that he might be pinned down there. So they call 911. 911 rings our firehouse, and you know, we load up everybody, and then all the water rescue stuff we have, because we did have a dive truck, swift water rescue truck, you know, heavy rescue, and the engines and the ambulances, and we all headed towards the Norway Dam. And even our boat, we had that loaded up as well. And I will never forget walking out on that dam with my partner, who was a diver at the time. I wasn't a diver yet. I was, like I said, just brand new in the fire department. I wasn't even a paramedic yet. I was just, you know, firefighter EMT. And we walk out onto the dam, which, you know, the concrete which separates the lake from where the river is, and then the spillway. And I remember my partner, Mike, I won't say his last name, but just his name was Mike, and him and a couple other guys met with one of our captains up there. And I remember them looking over the edge of the dam where the potential spot was, where the guy was. And I just remember the look on their faces was just, it was very quiet. And they just had this eerie look on their face like, I know we need to help this guy, but I'm not sure how we're going to pull this off. You know, you could tell there was legitimate fear in their faces. You know, a lot of firefighters will tell you, if they're certified in other forms of rescue, they'll go into a house fire and that no problem. But certain other things like grain bins and, you know, wildland fires, dive rescues, some of that stuff is way more dangerous than fighting house fires, just because of the sheer amount of things that can go wrong at any time, and your ways out should something go wrong are greatly reduced. And I remember the captain saying, because the guy from NIPSCO was yelling to get them in the water and get this guy out of there, and the captain was actually, you know, this is why it's important to keep your head about you in these situations, because he says, if I send people down there, they're going to wind up just like that guy is, and they're basically going to pull him against the grate down there where the water's flowing, and I'm going to trap a bunch of firemen down there. And the guy's still screaming at him. He's like, you want me to get him out of there? Shut this thing down right now. And there was this at least 10-minute argument about not shutting the dam off. And the captain's like, I'm not sending people down there if you're not going to turn this thing off, because I'm not going to keep stacking people up down there. He goes, this is already dangerous as it is. And so, and real quick, they think what happened was when the guy doing the maintenance got pulled into the grate of the dam, the force of the water moving ripped the regulator out of his mouth, and that's what ultimately led to being harmed. And so the captain, kind of, you know, being a very experienced guy, he had like 38 years at that point, he said, I'm not sending people in there, you shut this thing off. Well, finally they were able to shut it down. And what's so sad about the whole thing is the minute they shut that dam off, the guy came to the surface. And so the rescue boat went out and got him, and then proceeded to work all the way to the hospital. And then I believe he was lifelined to another hospital. But you know, where he hung on for about a month and a half, but ultimately sadly succumbed to his injuries. But this was one of those things that was very much preventable had they done things the right way. One, dam should have been shut off. Two, should have been certified with the actual diving helmet, something that where your regulator would not be able to be displaced. But just from that incident alone, remembering what those you guys were looking like, you know, at the potential of what this rescue is going to entail to this. I can't imagine like just knowing the sheer magnitude of something like this. But like anything else, they teach you early on in fire training and many other aspects of life with the various other services is try not to worry about what you're going to be doing an hour from now, but you got to worry about what you're doing right at this minute, and then don't even think about the next minute. Just focus on your task at hand right now. And then as you move through, then you start dealing with things as they come out. Because if you try to think about, oh my gosh, in 2 hours we have to be doing this or we may be doing that, you lose your mind. I mean, you can't think like that. So it's really good training that they teach us to do, you know, early on. But anyway, that was a little story time. But again, lots of thoughts and prayers to all the families of the people involved in this, both the victims that they're looking for and the rescuers trying to rescue these people. Like I said, you know, every time something great or small happens, we show the world who we really are. And when everybody's running away, all of us, every guy, every gal that's in these services, everybody runs towards danger. But it's what we do. It's what we enjoy. I always say this isn't something you just decide to do one day out of nowhere. This is something that I believe you're born with. You know, you have that drive inside to help people, and you'll do anything at any cost, any time of day, any time of night, you know, to go out and serve people that are in need. So thank you again to everybody that's responding to this. You know, if this was, I can tell you, if I was needed for this, I would definitely go up there and help. Probably not going to be in such a situation like this. I would imagine if they needed extra assistance, they would probably put out a call for rescue divers that were, but you have to, again, you have to be, this isn't just like any rescue diver that's going to go down there. You got to have special gear, special certifications and licenses to do this, because as I said earlier, not only are you diving in black water, as they call it, with limited visibility, but you're also diving in a collapse zone, which is even more dangerous. And you're diving in a collapse zone with constantly shifting currents and cold water. So this is like, as difficult as it can get, this is everything, you know. This is about as hard as it gets, you know, when you think about it. So people that are doing this, you know, thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. You know, please stay safe out there. As more details come available, I might touch back on this in a little while, maybe over the next few days. But everybody, please stay safe. And tomorrow, probably get back to the vlogging again. I'm gonna head back out. We're supposed to get some rough weather over the next couple of days, so I'm gonna try to head out in the morning, but I've got a lot of stuff planned, and gonna pick it back up tomorrow morning. Probably gonna go get another workout in. I got one more class to do at 6 p.m. tonight, and then we are done, D-U-N, for another 2 years. So looking forward to that. Thank you all again for watching. I will see you all more than likely tomorrow. Not sure where we're gonna be yet, but I've got something fun planned for you. So have a good afternoon, good rest of your day. I'll see y'all again soon. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you. Main Street Fire Rescue, out of service.
When you think about the structure itself underwater, it's just this tangled steel that's out of visibility for us. And in between that steel, you're trying to locate vehicles. I mean, this is really difficult stuff.
Yeah, my concern is for the divers, especially. That's not the clearest water. I don't know what the conditions are, what the tides are doing, and that's always a concern with those guys. They have to weigh their own safety with the possibility of recovery if it turns into a rescue, or when it just turns into a recovery. There's always that balance that they have to strike, and as professionals, they pretty much know where that line is, and they have people above them that help them make that decision. And in the case of rescue swimmers, I know Atlantic City launched early this morning. They had a helicopter en route very early. The rescue swimmers generally stay on the surface. They're trained not to do anything underwater unless they absolutely have to, and because they're not using any scuba, they're basically just holding their breath. So they're going to take care of anything on the surface. They'll work. I know that the helicopters will plan their search pattern for current and visibility, those types of things, where the likelihood of anybody who's in the water and floating or drifting, where they're likely to end up at. That's always part of the mission planning, and they'll be doing that. They would have been doing that en route from Atlantic City as well.
Mm-hmm. How early did they leave?
I was told that they launched at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, so right
away.
right around the time that it happened.
Yeah, when those things happen, the response is, they'll look at the severity of it, and they will launch. The conditions weren't anything that was going to prevent it from launching a helicopter. So they'll get en route and gather information as they go. They'll get as much information as they can before they leave, but they'll get in the air and start gathering information as they go from the district. They'll get information fed to them from the area, the local area, the on-scene managers, things like that.
Just looking at the weather forecast there, it's a high of 57 degrees today with mostly cloudy skies. How does that help or hurt the efforts here?
Well, of course, the air temperature and the water temperature, two huge factors. Water temperature being the biggest one. You lose your body heat 25 times faster in the water than you do in the air. So anybody that's in the water, they're going to be subject to hypothermia within 5 or 6 minutes, and everybody suffers that differently depending on their body mass, their physical capabilities, and a lot of times it's their determination. Underwater is a completely different thing. As far as the air crews, they're trained for this. The helicopter rescue swimmers are trained to deal with this. They do this from Alaska to Florida, out to Barbers Point, Hawaii. So the crews in the helicopter, they know what they're doing. They've dealt with weather like this up and down the East Coast. And generally the pilots that are flying and the air crews that are in the aircraft, they've been at different stations and have different experiences. So they're going to be able to deal with it.
Rick, these images they're stunning, and they're going to remain this way for some time. I can't imagine that container ship is going to move before this investigation is well into several hours and days from now. That would be my guess at the moment. With your Coast Guard aviation experience, can you help us understand how traffic moves in and out of this port at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Well, that's all determined by the authorities at the harbor. And of course, they're going to respond immediately, and those organizations, those authorities, they already have plans in place for events like this. They already have a response plan in place.